Stepsister brought me a cup of sleep tea, and smiled as she said she would spend the night in my bed. Then glowing comments began streaking through the air. Don't drink it, one warned. She's going to switch bodies with you, and take your place at Northbridge University. Another flashed behind it. You'll be locked in a psychiatric hospital, until you chew your own fingers raw, and then your mother will be in the room next door, awake just often enough to watch you die. I looked through my window at the woman, who had supposedly been insane for 10 years, imprisoned in the guest house behind our home, and I smiled. If the tea could steal my life, I would use it to give my mother hers back. Haley Shaw walked into my room while I was packing. My admission letter lay on top of the open suitcase. The Navy folder bore Northbridge University's silver seal. Its accelerated physics program admitted only 20 students nationwide, and I was one of them. I had spent 10 years pulling myself free of this house, one careful inch at a time. Only one step remained. Haley wore a white sleep dress. Her hair was damp and a delicate silver chain circled one ankle. She leaned against the doorframe with a sugary smile. Still awake, Lena? I ignored her, and slipped my last physics competition notebook into the suitcase. She crossed the room and set a glass of steaming tea on my desk. Mist clouded the glass. Tiny flower petals floated in the pale brown liquid. Dad says you're probably nervous about registering tomorrow. He asked me to make you something calming. My fingers stopped. That was when the first warning appeared. Don't drink it. I jerked my head up. No one else had entered the room yet. The words remained suspended in front of me. More lines followed, transparent as a live stream chat projected onto air. It's here. This is the moment that destroys the heroine's life. Lena Hart, don't drink that. It's body switch tea. If she drinks it, she'll wake up in Haley's body. Haley will use Lena's face to enter Northbridge, and Lena will be committed. The worst part is Nora. She does have brief lucid periods, but no one believes her. She'll watch her daughter die in the next hospital room. I stared at the messages as my throat tightened. Body switch teeth. Haley's smile thinned when I did not move. What are you looking at? I dragged my attention back to her. Nothing. She sat on my bed and touched the university folder. One fingertip traced my printed name. Lena Hart. The gesture was gentle. It still felt like a cold wet snake moving over my skin. Northbridge, she murmured. Most people couldn't get near a place like that. If they tried their whole lives. How did you get so lucky? At birth. I gave her a small smile. You think I was lucky? Something shifted in her eyes. Then she tilted her head and smiled again. Weren't you? Your mother may be crazy, but she used to be a university professor. You were born smart. You win competitions. Teachers love you. Reporters love you. She tapped my admission letter. Some of us work and get nothing. I met her gaze. When have you ever worked? Her face froze for half a second. You always know exactly what to say, don't you? She pushed the tea toward me. Drink it before it gets cold. The floating comments accelerated. She's panicking. Haley repeated senior year twice, and still couldn't qualify for a 4-year college. She's been eating herself alive with jealousy. Victor bought the tea from an occult dealer. There are 2 cups. If 2 people drink them and fall asleep, they wake in each other's bodies. The other cup is in Haley's room. She already plans to drink it. Once Lena drinks this one, the switch is locked in. Please don't. You're about to be free. I looked down at the glass. The tea was clear enough to reflect my pale face. At 18 I was much too thin. Years of poor nutrition had left my wrist bones, jutting beneath the skin like bamboo joints. But I was brilliant. That was what they hated most. Victor Shaw moved into our house with his daughter when I was 8. By then my mother, Dr. Nora Hart, had already begun having what he called episodes. He screamed in the middle of the night. She broke things. She knelt on the floor and begged me not to swallow the medication Victor handed me. Everyone said she was psychotic. Your mom is sick, Victor told me. I'll take care of you. No, he was not my father. My biological father died in an accident when I was 3. Years later, Mom married Victor. Within 12 months, she had supposedly lost her mind. After that, everything belonged to him. The house, the savings, the licensing income from my mother's patents and me. To outsiders, I grew up in a loving, blended family. Inside the house, I was its quietest piece of furniture. I did not cry. I did not argue. I did not ask for money. I needed to survive. I also needed to get my mother out. For 10 years, Victor kept her locked in the old guest house behind our backyard. He claimed she was violent and could not safely leave. I had visited in secret. Sometimes she crouched in a corner with tangled hair, whispering the same words over and over. Don't drink it, Lenny. Don't drink. Sometimes she became clear. For a few minutes she would stare at me through the reinforced door, while tears ran silently down her face. I had hated her. I hated her for going insane. I hated her for failing to protect me. But the messages said she had never stopped wanting to protect me. She was only trapped inside a mind someone else had shattered. Lena, Haley prompted. I picked up the glass. Her eyes lit instantly. The hunger in them was so bright that she looked starved. I raised the rim toward my mouth. Steam warmed my cheeks just before the tea touched my lips. Scream tore through the backyard. It was high and raw like nails dragged across glass. My mother, Haley, flinched and stood. What is she doing now? I sat down the tea and headed for the hall. Haley grabbed my wrist. Where are you going to check on my mother? She frowned. Dad said no one goes to the guest house tonight. I looked at her hand around my wrist. Let go. She tightened her grip and lowered her voice. You're leaving tomorrow. Don't start trouble now. She's been crazy for 10 years. One more bad night won't kill her. I smiled. Why are you so afraid I'll see her? Panic flickered in her eyes. I'm not afraid. I'm looking out for you. I peeled her fingers away one at a time, then stopped blocking the door when I entered the hall. In the hallway with the short sleeves rolled neatly to his forearms, wire-rimmed glasses that made him look scholarly. No stranger would believe. This elegant man had imprisoned his wife for a decade. His brows drew together. Where are you going this late? Mom is screaming. His voice cooled. She's having an episode. Her caregiver will handle it. Which caregiver you fired? The last one a month ago. His eyes hardened. For one naked second, every trace of warmth vanished. Registration is tomorrow, Lena. This would be a poor time to upset me. I understood the threat. He rarely hit me. He withheld grocery money, tore up competition materials or locked me in the attic. The next morning he would smile at my teachers and explain that I was buckling under academic pressure. I lowered my gaze and softened my voice. Victor, I only want to look in on her. She's screaming so badly I won't sleep otherwise. Haley hurried out and looped both arms around her father's elbow. Let Lena go. She'll come back. Drink her tea and sleep. Father and daughter exchanged the slightest glance. Then Victor stepped aside. 10 minutes, I nodded. By the time I reached the backyard, sweat covered my palms. The comments followed me. She's so calm. Is she going to give the tea to her mother? Nora's body is terribly weak, but if she switches with Haley, she'll wake in a healthy body. She isn't trying to escape. She's trying to save her mom. Yes, if I escaped alone, what happened to Mom? I could go to Northbridge, but Victor would keep her locked here. If I drank the tea, Haley would steal the future I had fought to earn. So what if someone else drank it? The guest house door was locked. Took a key from beneath a flower pot, a duplicate I had secretly made in my junior year. The moment the door opened, damp air and mildew struck me. No lights were on. Moonlight entered through the narrow window, and found a body curled in the corner. Mom was painfully thin. Most of her hair had gone gray and hung across her face. She wore an old gray nightgown. When she saw me, she raised her head. Terror burst through the fog in her eyes. Don't drink, Lenny. Don't drink. My throat burned, Mom. She crawled toward me. Her knees hit the floor with dull knocks. Don't drink tea poison. I knelt and held her shoulders. Her bones hurt my palms. 10 years ago, she had stood in lecture halls explaining quantum mechanics. She braided my hair on winter nights. She tucked my frozen feet beneath her sweater to warm them against her stomach. Now she was this. Mom, I whispered, do you want to wake up? She stared at me as if she could not understand. I fought my tears and drew the glass of tea from inside my jacket. I had taken it from my room on the way out. If you drink this, you may wake up as Haley. It may fail. It may make everything worse. Theo messages say it switches bodies, and I don't know whether they're real, but this may be our only chance. Mom looked at me. She seemed to be hauling herself toward lucidity, with everything she had. Her shaking hand rose to my cheek. Her fingers were as cold as ice. Lenny, go leave Mommy. My tears fell. At last, I caught her hand. My voice no longer sounded like mine. What happens to you if I leave? She shook her head. Tears followed the deep lines in her face. Mommy, useless. The words pierced me. As a child, I had screamed them at her in dreams. Why were you useless? Why couldn't you wake up? Why did you leave me alone in that house? Hearing her say it about herself left me unable to breathe. I rested my forehead on her knees. I hated you. Her whole body shook. I said through my sobs. Haley locked me in the storage room one winter, and left me there all night. I called for you but no one came. When I won a physics prize, Victor spent the money on one of Haley's dresses. I called for you then too, Mom. I really did hate you. Her fingers trembled violently. I raised my face. But I want you to live. I want to know whether if you were awake, you would hold me. I want you to tell me these years weren't my fault. She clapped a hand over her mouth. A broken sound escaped her. I held the tea to her lips. Will you drink it, Mom? She looked at me for a long time. Then her hand closed around my wrist for one instant. Her eyes were as clear as they had been 10 years ago. Yes, she said. I'll drink. Haley knocked on my door after I returned to my room. She stood in the hall with impatience written across her face. What took so long? I sat on the edge of my bed and deliberately rubbed my eyes. Mom carried on for a while. I finally got her to sleep. Haley's gaze snapped to the desk. The empty glass waited there. She stared for a heartbeat. Then the corners of her mouth began to rise. You finished it? I licked my lips. Yeah. A little bitter relief loosened her entire body. She came over and linked her arm through mine with all's affection. Let me sleep in here tonight. I looked at her. You always complain that my room is too small. Her smile turned coy. You're leaving tomorrow. I'm going to miss you. The floating comments mocked her without mercy. She has to watch Lena fall asleep in case the switch fails. Stop pretending, Haley. Your eyes are glued to that admission letter. She drank her cup in her room. Now she's waiting for morning. I did not refuse. Fine. Haley climbed into my bed like its owner and patted the mattress beside her. Turn out the light. I did. Darkness settled over the room. She fell asleep quickly. Her breathing became even with a faint, satisfied hum on each exhale. I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I was afraid to sleep. Afraid that I would close my eyes and wake to discover it had all been a dream. Afraid the tea would not work. Afraid my mother's body would not survive it. Afraid I had failed to save her. Again. The night stretched endlessly. Branch shadows swayed beyond the window. My heartbeat struck my ribs hard enough to hurt. Near dawn, the person beside me moved. Haley, or whoever occupied Haley's body, began breathing too fast. She sat up abruptly. The young woman sitting beside me on the mattress did not look like my mother. She had Haley's flawless porcelain skin, Haley's glossy chestnut hair spilling over pale shoulders, and Haley's delicate silver ankle chain that clinked softly as her legs swung out of bed. But when she turned her head toward me, the expression in her eyes belonged to someone who had spent 10 years staring through a barred window at a world that had forgotten her. Her hands came up slowly. She stared at the fingers, smooth, uncalloused, unblemished by years of damp winter cold and harsh disinfectant. A shudder ran through her entire frame, a breath catching so hard in her chest it sounded like wood splintering. The floating text flared instantly before my eyes, brighter than the weak gray dawn filtering through the curtains. They worked. God in heaven, I'd actually worked. NORA is in Haley's body. Look at her hands. She's looking at her hands. Warning. Haley has just woken up in the guest house. The real danger begins now. I sat up slowly, my heart thumping against my ribs like a trapped bird. Mom! Whispered, the word tasting strange and heavy on my tongue. I hadn't spoken it aloud in a decade without a sneer from Victor or a slap from Haley. The girl who looked like Haley turned. Tears spilled from her wide, clear eyes that held no trace of the foggy, fragmented madness that had dragged Dr. Nora Hart through hell for 10 years. Lenny, she breathed. Her voice was Haley's high, sweet timbre, but the cadence, the tender, agonized weight behind the syllable, belonged entirely to my mother. She reached out, her smooth young fingers brushing against my jaw, with absolute reverent awe. Lenny, your face. I can see you clearly. There's no medicine in my blood. There's no fog. Before I could answer, a blood-curdling shriek shattered the morning silence. It came from the backyard, from the guest house. It was a sound of unadulterated primal horror. A woman's voice, raspy, weak, but strained to its absolute limit with panic. Let me out. Dad. Dad, help me. My hands. What happened to my hands? Dad. My mother, now occupying Haley's young, healthy frame, stiffened violently. Her eyes darted toward the window, then back to me. The floating comments surged across my vision in a frantic cascade. Haley looked in the mirror. She saw Dr. Nora's 50-year-old, malnourished face. She's screaming for Victor. She doesn't realize yet that Victor built that guest house specifically to ensure no one ever hears what comes out of it. Victor is waking up. Heavy footsteps in the hallway. Be careful. Heavy, deliberate footsteps echoed on the hardwood outside my room. Victor. My mother grabbed my wrist. Her grip was strong, far stronger than it had ever been in her old, frail body. Lenny, she whispered quickly, her sharp intellect reasserting itself with terrifying speed. He must not know. Victor realizes what happened. He will kill us both before you step foot on Northbridge campus. Play along. You are still Lena. I am Haley. Can you do it? I asked, searching her young face. Can you pretend to be the girl who tormented us? A dark, cold shadow crossed my mother's borrowed features, the lingering steel of a woman who had once been one of the top theoretical physicists in the country, before her life was stolen. I watched her through that guest house window for 10 years, Nora whispered, a terrible, icy smile touching Haley's lips. I know every turn of her head, every cruel little tilt of her chin. Watch me. The bedroom door swung open. Victor Shaw stood in the threshold, wearing his silk navy dressing gown, his wire-rimmed glasses resting on his nose. He looked immaculate, cultured, composed, the picture of a grieving stepfather managing a tragic family situation. But his eyes were sharp and cold as ice. What is that ungodly racket? Victor demanded. his gaze sweeping over the room. It landed on me first, sitting on the bed, my packed suitcase near the desk. Then, his eyes shifted to my mother, standing near the window in Haley's white nightdress. Haley. Victor frowned, taking a step inside. Why are you up? And why is your mother screaming like a slaughtered animal in the yard? My mother didn't blink. She folded her arms across her chest, tossed Haley's glossy hair over her shoulder with a fluid, spoiled motion, and let out an annoyed, exasperated sigh that was so identical to Haley's natural cadence it sent a chill down my spine. She's been doing that for an hour, Dad, Nora said, her voice dripping with Haley's signature whiny irritation. I couldn't sleep a wink. Lena and I were just about to check on her, but honestly, she's completely unhinged today. She kept screaming something about her hands. Victor stared at her. For 3 agonizing seconds, the air in the room turned to glass. He scrutinized Haley's body, the posture, the tone, the slight lip curl. The floating text hovered anxiously in front of my face. He's suspicious. Victor is a psychopath. He notices small details. Look at his hands. He's holding the master key to the guest house. Don't let him go down there alone. If Haley convinces him of the switch before you leave for registration, you're dead. I stepped forward, drawing Victor's attention away from my mother. Kept my voice low, exhausted and bitter. The exact persona I had worn for 10 years to survive under his roof. She's worse than usual, Victor, I said, looking down at my shoes. I drank the tea Haley brought me, but the screaming woke me up before I could fall into a deep sleep. My head hurts. Victor's eyes snapped to me. A subtle, sinister flicker of satisfaction flashed behind his spectacles. He thinks the tea worked, I realized. He thinks I drank it and that Haley is sitting here in my room, waiting for the switch to settle. Because Haley had drank her cup in her own room last night, Victor assumed the tea had bonded the 2 people in the house who were meant to switch. Lena and Haley. He had no idea a third person, my mother, had consumed the second dose. Your head hurts? Victor asked me, his voice softening into that sickening, fake paternal tone he used for outsiders. That's normal, Lena. You've been under a lot of stress with the Northbridge registration today. He turned back to Nora's Haley, a sly, knowing look passing between them, or so he thought. Haley, sweetie, go to your room and dress. I'll go quiet your mother down. She's probably just having a reaction to her late-night medication. Make her shut up, Dad, Nora's Haley grumbled, walking past him into the hallway without missing a beat. It's embarrassing. The neighbors are going to hear. Victor smiled faintly at his daughter's utter lack of empathy. I'll handle it. He turned and walked down the stairs, heading toward the back door. The moment his back was turned, my mother ducked around the corner of the hallway and caught my eye. The spoiled, vacant expression disappeared instantly, replaced by a gaze of burning, razor-sharp intelligence. She pointed toward Victor's home office at the end of the hall, then made a swift writing motion with her hand. The safe, she was telling me. The patents. I nodded once. We had 2 hours before the Northbridge registration opened. 2 hours to pull the rug out from under 10 years of torment. The backyard was enveloped in a cold morning mist. Down in the guest house, the screaming had devolved into desperate, ragged sobbing. Victor unlocked the heavy iron deadbolt, turned the handle and stepped inside the dim, damp room. Nora, shut your mouth, Victor snapped coldly, pulling a syringe from his robe pocket. I don't have time for your episodes today. Lena is leaving for Dad. Dad, it's me. A figure hurled itself out of the shadows, grabbing Victor's silk lapels with claw-like, dirt-caked fingers. Victor recoiled in disgust, shoving the woman back against the stone wall. Get off me, you crazy bitch. Dad, look at me. Haley, trapped inside Nora's fragile 50-year-old body, was hyperventilating, tears carving tracks through the grime on her pale, wrinkled face. She looked at her withered, yellowed hands in terror, shaking violently. It's Haley. It's your daughter. The tea was wrong. Lena didn't drink. Nora drank it. Victor froze. His eyes narrowed behind his glasses as he looked down at the pathetic, trembling figure of his wife. What ridiculous game are you playing now, Nora? Victor sneered, stepping back and adjusting his robe. You think claiming to be my daughter will make me let you out? You're insane. You've been insane for 10 years. No. Ask me something. Haley shrieked, her voice cracking into a hideous, high-pitched wheeze. Ask me what my favorite brand of shoes is. Ask me what code we used for the offshore account in Cayman. Ask me what I wore to the summer gala last year. Dad, please. I'm 17. I'm your daughter. I'm stuck in this hideous old rotten body. Victor's face went deadly pale. The color drained from his lips. The syringe in his hand trembled slightly. He stepped closer, staring into the bloodshot, terrified eyes of his wife. But the cadence The panicked, selfish, hysterical vocabulary. It didn't belong to Dr. Nora Hart, the brilliant, dignified woman he had systematically poisoned. It belonged to Haley. Haley, Victor whispered, horror creeping into his voice like slow-acting venom. If you are here, then who is? His mind pieced the nightmare together in a split second. If Haley was in Nora's body in the guest house, then the girl standing upstairs in Haley's nightdress, the girl who had just scoffed at him and told him to make the noise stop. Nora, Victor gasped, his blood running cold. Nora is in your body. Yes, Haley wailed, falling to her knees and grabbing his slippers. She tricked us. Lena gave her the tea. Dad, you have to fix this. Switch us back. Kill her. Do something. I can't feel my fingers, my heart is beating so slow I feel like I'm dying. Victor stood frozen in the damp, mildewed room, a cold sweat breaking out across his forehead. If Nora was in Haley's body, she had youth, she had mobility, and most dangerous of all, she had her brilliant, unclouded mind back. And she was currently in his house with Lena. Stay here, Victor hissed, shoving Haley away as he bolted for the door. Don't make a sound. Dad, don't leave me here. Victor slammed the heavy door, threw the deadbolt shut, and sprinted back toward the main house, drawing a concealed pocket knife from his robe. Inside Victor's private study, the air smelled of old leather and expensive scotch. My mother, standing in Haley's body, was standing in front of the massive painting of the Swiss Alps that covered the wall safe. Her fingers were flying across the keypad with terrifying precision. 31904. The floating text flashed above my head. That's the birth date of Victor's late brother, the only combination he ever uses. Hurry, he is coming back from the guest house. He knows. Mom, he knows, I said urgently, watching the hallway. The comments say he figured it out. Nora didn't panic. She didn't even flinch. The 10 years of locked-up rage and suppressed intellect converged into a laser-focused stillness. Click. The safe door swung open. Inside sat stacks of bearer bonds, USB drives, original hard copies of my mother's stolen patents on high-density quantum algorithms, and a small dark glass bottle labeled neurothraxin, the experimental neurotoxin Victor had been illegally administering to her for a decade to induce artificial psychosis. He didn't just ruin my life, Lenny, Nora said, her young voice deadly cold as she swept the drives, the documents, and the chemical bottle into my physics backpack. He was selling my life's work to a foreign defense contractor under Haley's name to build her a trust fund. He meant to wipe my memory entirely by the end of this year. Footsteps thundered up the stairs. Lena! Haley! Victor's voice roared from the hallway, stripped of all scholarly elegance, raw with murderous rage. Nora slammed the safe door shut and pulled the painting back over it. She grabbed my hand, her grip ironclad, and dragged me toward the floor-to-ceiling glass doors leading to the balcony. Out, she commanded. It's the second floor. I stammered. There's a trellis covered in wisteria, Nora said, her eyes flashing with the cold calculation of a physicist judging weight and structural stress. The wood is cedar 3 inches thick. It will hold our combined weight easily. Go. The study door burst open. Victor stood there, his glasses crooked, a silver hunting knife gleaming in his right hand. His eyes locked onto my mother, occupying his daughter's body, holding my hand. You miserable bitch, Victor snarled, his voice trembling with psychotic hatred. Give me back my daughter. Give her back her body. Nora stepped between Victor and me, standing tall in Haley's white silk nightdress. She stared at the man who had tormented her for 10 years, and for the first time in a decade she laughed. It was a rich, triumphant, mocking laugh that cut through Victor like a blade. You always were a terrible student of physics, Victor, Nora said softly, her voice echoing with absolute authority. Energy cannot be destroyed. It only changes form. And right now, all my fury has a brand new engine. She kicked the desk chair directly into Victor's knees. Victor stumbled back with a curse, tripping over the heavy oak furniture. Now Lenny, Nora shouted. We threw open the balcony doors, vaulted over the stone railing, and grabbed the thick cedar trellis. We slid down the leafy vines, landing heavily on the manicured lawn below. The car, I yelled, pulling the keys to Victor's Mercedes out of my pocket. Keys I had swiped from the hall table 5 minutes earlier. Behind us, glass shattered as Victor leaned over the second-floor balcony, his face twisted in demonic rage. I will hunt you down, both of you. You won't make it to Northbridge. We scrambled into the car. I threw the Mercedes into reverse, tire screeching against the gravel driveway, and tore out of the estate into the morning light, leaving the Shaw nightmare behind us in a cloud of dust. The floating comments were going wild across my windshield, flashing so fast. They looked like fireworks. So shit. They escaped. They actually escaped. Look at Nora driving. Wait, Lena is driving. Warning. Victor is going to the guest house. He's going to bring Haley and Nora's body with him to Northbridge to claim Nora is insane and stole Haley's identity. He is going to try to use the psychiatric commitment laws to arrest them at the registration. I kept my eyes on the highway, my hands locked at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. Beside me, my mother was rapidly going through the black leather binder she had pulled from Victor's safe, her eyes scanning lines of code and financial statements with terrifying speed. Mom, I said, my voice shaking as the adrenaline began to fade, replaced by sheer terror. What do we do when we get to Northbridge? Victor is an influential alumnus. He has connections with the board. If he shows up with your old body and claims that Haley, you have lost her mind and kidnapped me, who will the police believe? Nora turned to me. In Haley's youthful, unblemished face, there was a terrible, beautiful light. They will believe the science, Lenny, Nora said calmly. Your stepfather spent 10 years trying to erase Dr. Nora Hart. He thought he could steal my mind and leave me a shell. But he forgot one fundamental truth. She reached out and patted my hand gently. A mind like mine doesn't belong to a body. It belongs to the universe. And today, Northbridge University is going to witness the greatest lecture of my career. Northbridge University's silver gates loomed high against the autumn sky. The campus was alive with hundreds of elite incoming freshmen, wealthy parents, media reporters, and academic dignitaries. Banners reading "Welcome Class of 2028. The future of accelerated physics" fluttered in the crisp breeze. I parked the Mercedes in the visitor lot. My mother and I walked side by side toward the main auditorium. Nora was wearing a sharp, tailored blazer and trousers she had grabbed from my wardrobe. She looked sleek, dangerous, and impossibly young. Carried my admission letter in its navy folder, my heart hammering against my ribs. As we crossed the Grand Plaza toward the steps of the hall, the floating text suddenly flickered, turning a dark, ominous red. Red alert. Victor has arrived. He brought 2 private security officers and a psychiatric transport van. Haley is with him in a wheelchair, wearing Nora's old nightgown, crying and pretending to be a kidnapped victim. They're heading for the registration stage now. They're here, I whispered, freezing in the middle of the plaza. Nora stopped. She looked toward the top of the grand marble staircase leading into the auditorium. Standing beside the Dean of Admissions, Dr. Arthur Vance, a renowned physicist, and my mother's former colleague, was Victor Shaw. Beside Victor sat a wheelchair. Slumped in it was a frail, gray-haired woman, wrapped in a blanket. Haley, trapped inside my mother's old, broken body, sobbing hysterically into a tissue. 2 burly men in black security uniforms stood behind them. There she is. Victor's voice boomed across the plaza through a megaphone, halting the crowd of hundreds of students and parents in their tracks. Police! Security! Stop that young woman! The crowd gasped. Whispers erupted across the plaza as campus security guards stepped forward, encircling my mother and me. Dean Vance frowned, looking down from the podium. Victor? What is the meaning of this? Today is the national registration ceremony. Dean Vance. Thank God I reached you in time. Victor shouted, his voice trembling with expertly crafted grief and horror as he gestured wildly toward my mother. That girl, the one standing beside my stepdaughter Lena, is not my daughter Haley. The crowd hushed. Reporters from local news stations pulled out their cameras, aiming them straight at us. Victor, what are you talking about? Dean Vance demanded. My wife, Dr. Nora Hart, suffered a violent psychotic breakdown last night, Victor proclaimed, pointing a shaking finger at my mother, in Haley's body. She attacked my real daughter Haley, forced her into her own clothes, locked her in a room, and stole Haley's identity. The woman standing before you in the blazer is my insane wife, who has somehow impersonated my 17-year-old daughter to destroy this registration. He turned to the frail woman in the wheelchair, Haley and Nora's body, who immediately began to wail on cue. Tell them, Victor commanded the wheelchair. Tell them who you are. Haley, trapped in my mother's old body, looked up, tears streaming down her wrinkled, pale cheeks. I'm Haley, she wailed, her raspy, broken voice echoing through the plaza. Dean Vance, please. That's my stepmother. She took my clothes. She took my face. She's crazy. She tried to kill me. The crowd erupted into shocked gasps. Sick. The floating text flashed furiously. Victor is using Haley's desperation to convince everyone that Nora is a delusional kidnapper. If they agree to a medical examination, Nora's DNA is in that body. DNAs don't switch in. Body switch T. DNA proof will show she is Haley Shaw physical body. They will commit Nora to an asylum for impersonation and assault. My stomach dropped into a cold abyss. The floating text was right. Biologically, scientifically, the body standing beside me was Haley Shaw. Blood test, a DNA sweep, a physical exam, everything would prove that the girl in the blazer was Haley, and the old woman in the wheelchair was biologically Dr. Nora Hart. If the law stepped in, biological proof would win. My mother would be dragged off to a psychiatric facility for life, framed as a delusional psychopath who tried to steal her stepdaughter's identity. The campus guards moved in, reaching for my mother's arms. "Ma'am, keep your hands where we can see them. Don't touch her," I screamed, stepping in front of my mother. "She's telling the truth. Victor poisoned her for 10 years. Look at his safe." "Quiet, Lena." Victor cut me off smoothly, looking at the crowd with pitiful eyes. "The poor girl has been brainwashed by her mother's psychosis. Guards, take them both into protective custody until the paramedics arrive." "Wait." A single word cut through the noise. It wasn't loud, but it possessed a sharp, razor-like clarity that made every person in the plaza freeze. Came from my mother. Nora stepped forward, brushing past the security guards with an aura of absolute unshakable dominance. She didn't look at Victor. She didn't look at Haley in the wheelchair. She looked straight up the marble stairs, directly into the eyes of Dean Arthur Vance. "Arthur," Nora said softly. Dean Vance blinked, stunned by the familiar, effortless way this 17-year-old girl addressed him. I beg your pardon. It has been 12 years, 4 months, and 6 days since we last spoke in the Cavendish Laboratory at Cambridge," Nora said, her young voice perfectly calm, stepping up the first marble stair. "You were struggling with the nonlinear perturbation equations for the secondary quantum state in 3-dimensional lattice spaces. You called me at 3 in the morning weeping because your mathematical model kept collapsing into infinite regress." Dean Vance's mouth fell open. His paper folder slipped from his hand, scattering documents across the stage. How do you know that?" Vance whispered, his face turning pale. "That conversation was never published. It was private, between me and Dr. Nora Hart. Because I solved it for you on a paper napkin at 4 in the morning, Arthur." Nora continued smoothly, taking another step up the stairs. "I told you to substitute the standard Dirac operator with a modified non-Hermitian Hamiltonian to account for the topological edge states. You published the paper 6 months later. Page 42. You dedicated the footnote to NH. The plaza went dead silent. Victor's face turned from pale to purple. "Don't listen to her, Vance. She read his old journals. She's a stalker." "Shut up, Victor," Dean Vance breathed, stepping down to the edge of the stage, staring in utter disbelief at the young girl walking toward him. Nora didn't stop. She walked straight to the large blackboard that had been set up on the auditorium stage for the keynote presentation. She grabbed a piece of white chalk. "A body can be faked, Victor," Nora said, her voice ringing across the microphone, carrying over the entire audience of 500 people. "A DNA sequence belongs to flesh. But intellect belongs to the soul." She pressed the chalk to the black slate. Clack, clack, clack. With terrifying, breathtaking speed, her hand moved across the board. Complex, sprawling lines of advanced theoretical physics, equations that only 5 people on Earth could comprehend, began to bloom across the surface in flawless, elegant script. "This is the unification theory of quantum decoherence that I was developing before Victor Shaw began slip neurothraxin into my evening tea 10 years ago," Nora stated, writing without a single second of hesitation. "Equations 12 through 34 detail the exact neural mapping of memory retention under synthetic chemical trauma." She stopped, turning around, dropping the chalk into the tray with a soft click. She looked directly at Dean Vance. "Ask the girl in the wheelchair to explain line 3, Arthur," Nora said quietly. "If she is Dr. Nora Hart, she should be able to finish the proof. She cannot. Then she is merely Haley Shaw, a girl who couldn't even pass senior algebra without paying someone to take her tests." All eyes swung to the wheelchair. Haley, trapped in Nora's frail body, stared at the blackboard. The mathematical symbols looked like ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics to her. Her mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. I, Haley stammered, panic surging through her as she looked at Victor. Dad, what does that mean? I don't know what those numbers are. Tell them. Make them stop looking at me. She's having an episode." Victor yelled desperately, grabbing the handles of the wheelchair to pull her away. "We're leaving. Security. Block the exits." Dean Vance's voice roared through the PA system, full of thunderous rage. 4 heavy-set university officers immediately stepped in front of Victor's path, guns unholstered at their sides. Dean Vance walked slowly down the stairs, his eyes brimming with tears as he looked at the young woman holding the chalk. He reached out a trembling hand, looking into the eyes of his old colleague, hidden inside a different face. "Nora," Vance whispered, his voice cracking with emotion. It's really you. It's me, Arthur." Nora smiled softly, a genuine warm smile. I'm back. And my daughter Lena is registering for your accelerated physics program today. The aftermath descended like an avalanche. Within 30 minutes, state police vehicles, federal investigators, and medical units swarmed the Northbridge campus. I pulled the black leather binder and the bottle of neurothraxin from my backpack, handing them directly to the chief of police. The USB drives contained 10 years of illegal transactions, offshore bank records, and video surveillance, proving Victor had systematically poisoned his wife, stolen her patents, and locked her in the guest house to exploit her estate. Victor Shaw was handcuffed on the spot. As the officers shoved him into the back of a police cruiser, he screamed like a madman, his cultured facade completely destroyed. It's a magic tea. She stole my daughter's body. You can't arrest me. That's not Haley. The officers simply shook their heads, assuming the stress of his exposed crimes had driven him into a sudden psychotic break. Beside the ambulance, Haley, trapped in my mother's old, fragile body, was hysterically sobbing as paramedics wrapped her in a foil blanket. I'm 17. She shrieked at the doctors trying to calm her down with sedatives. I'm young. I'm supposed to go to parties. Look at my skin. Why am I old? Dad, save me. A senior psychiatrist stood beside her, taking notes on a clipboard with a look of deep pity. Severe delusional transference brought on by acute trauma, the doctor murmured to his assistant. She believes she is her teenage stepdaughter. Commit her to the high-security ward at St. Jude's psychiatric facility until she's stable. Poetic justice. The floating text scrolled across the sky above the ambulance, glowing in brilliant golden letters. Haley spent her life trying to lock Nora in an asylum and take Lena's place. Now she will spend the rest of her days in the exact psychiatric ward she helped build, trapped in the body she tried to destroy, while no one ever believes a word she says. I watched the ambulance drive away, its sirens wailing into the distance, taking Haley away forever. The sun was high in the afternoon sky, casting a warm golden glow over the Northbridge courtyard. The registration desk was set up near the grand fountain. Dean Vance personally stamped my admission folder with the university's silver seal, handing me my official student ID card. Welcome to Northbridge University, Lena Hart, Dean Vance said with a deep, respectful bow. You have your mother's genius. The world is waiting for you. Thank you, Dean, I said, holding the ID tightly against my chest. I turned around. Standing by the fountain, bathed in the autumn sunlight, was my mother. She wore a beautiful navy coat that Dean Vance's assistant had brought her. Her young face, Haley's old face, now transformed by warmth, intelligence, and deep love, smiled back at me. She didn't look like a stepsister. She didn't look like an enemy. She looked like the mother who had held me when I was 3 years old, restored and whole. I walked over to her. For 10 years I had survived in a cold, silent house, believing I was entirely alone in the world. I had built a shell around my heart, convinced that love was a luxury I couldn't afford. Nora stepped forward and pulled me into her arms. Her embrace was warm, strong, and real. The scent of rain and sweet tea lingered on her collar, but there was no fear left in it. Only peace. I'm sorry it took me so long to wake up, Lenny, my mother whispered into my hair, holding me close as I finally let my tears fall. I promise. I will never leave you alone again. I know, Mom, I sobbed, wrapping my arms around her waist, burying my face in her shoulder. I know. Above us, in the clear blue sky, the floating comets began to slow down, fading into soft, sparkling dust. The end of the nightmare. Lena Hart has taken her reasonful place. Birth to Nora. Hart has returned to the world of science, stronger and younger than ever. SOI brilliant heroine. Your real life begins now. The letters dissolved into the sunlight, vanishing entirely. I looked up at the grand stone archway of Northbridge University ahead of us. My mother locked her arm in mine, and together, side by side, we stepped through the gates into our new life.